Gurmagut Cahirlock and people before profit will not be supporting this bill either. Although, let it be said that all sympathy and support for small rural family farmers and fishers and communities who have been decimated, we absolutely have. I just want to say, I was listening on the way in here to the debate, and the expression "that bates Banagher" occurred to me when I was listening to, in particular, Deputy Carol Nolan quoting the late great Tony Benn, who is a pro-choice and socialist who absolutely stood on the side of people. And I looked up the definition of "that bates Banagher" and it says wonderfully inconsistent and absurd, and it really did fit it. So maybe we should change the expression from a town in our own constituency to "that bates Deputy Carol Nolan," because that was wonderfully inconsistent and absurd in the way that she used the socialist Tony Benn to make an argument which he didn't make, which he would never have said: how do we take down NGOs and people who advocate for the environment? The argument he was making is, how do we take down elected politicians who break the promises that they got elected for by the people? Anyway, just to go to the point of the matter, I don't think it's a coincidence that this debate is happening when the guillotining of the Planning and Development Bill later tonight will happen by government. The rural independents are once again acting as sheep in wolf's clothing, and they're doing the work of the government by seeking to undermine environmental protections and promote the interests not of small individual rural people but of big business, big farmers and the agri-food industry. The government will do it later on tonight by stripping what limited democratic rights exist out of the planning process through their Planning and Development Bill. They don't want ordinary people and working class communities to be able to object to pro-big business and developer-led planning, no matter how destructive that those plans are for our environment and our communities. Including the Greens, the government tonight will seek to designate liquefied natural gas terminals as strategic infrastructure to stop local people and environmental activists from objection to them. And the rural independents no doubt will support the government on that, as they have been the loudest voice in this chamber in advocating for the Shannon LNG project to go ahead. And no doubt there's many in this chamber would like to do the same for data centres as well. But if the government succeeds in ramming through their bill tonight, which looks like they will, then on Taisce, ironically, will be one of the few organisations left that will legally be able to object to anti-environmental, pro-big business development, because the planning bill makes it much harder for NGOs and communities to object by forcing them to jump through bureaucratic hoops, by having to be a legally registered organisation with a constitution and so on. And this would be a barrier to activist groups and less organised grassroots residents groups. Matty McGrath and the rest of the rural group want to get rid of An Taisce's role because they want an untrammelled right to profit for big farmers, big business in this country, and to hell with everyone else. Over the years, An Taisce has played an important role in protecting Irish heritage and the environment, and often it has been the one to speak truth to power and to hold the government and big business to their environmental commitments, like, for example, holding the government to its commitment on the Climate Change Advisory Committee because it failed to follow the science and resulted in weak recommendations on reducing agricultural commitments, like, for example, insisting that the nitrates derogation on domestic action to reduce methane emissions, both of which would reduce the size of the national herd through reduction in an exit scheme and capping herd sizes at 200 cows. And by God, is something like this needed if anybody has any heart and watched the Primetime Investigates programme last night into the treatment of calves and live hoof exports of calves. So it's because of challenges like this to the huge power of big farmers and to the agri-food industry in this country, and I don't believe it's concern for small farmers and rural community that the interest groups that An Taisce actually protect, that the rural independents are putting forward this bill. A major investigation recently by an organisation called DSMOG published on the power of intensive farm lobbying in this country, and it says that it is preventing Ireland, the intensive farm lobbying is preventing Ireland from addressing its poorer air and water quality and meeting its climate targets. Intensive farming and the lobby appears to be in the driving seat. Major dairy processors, in particular, have been ramping up lobbying efforts around Ireland's derogation from the EU Nitrates Directive, designed to tackle farming pollution. And meanwhile, many small farmers feel locked in to an unsustainable food system that they cannot profit from. And I'll finish by quoting Elaine McGough, the head of advocacy at Taisce. And she told the investigation, that the intensive agriculture sector in Ireland is incredibly effective at lobbying and at using their platform to push a false message of sustainability from a number of different angles. And this is clearly a well-oiled machine, one whose primary purpose is to sell a false narrative that we continue business as usual and not pay the environmental price. And I believe that's why the rural independents and the far-right anti-environment, anti-immigrant, anti-women forces that is amplified by the rural independents, and they hate Taisce so much and want to sabotage it. And I've no doubt they'll be supporting the move to bring LNGs into the country tonight, but I just want all here in the House to know that at 12 o'clock the climate movement will be at the gates of the Dáil here today to demand that the Green Party in particular, but all of us, do the right thing and vote against the planning bill being guillotined tonight and against the contents of it.